This film was a unique sort of documentary in that usually documentaries you're having to rush to capture something that's happening in the moment. In this case, you were crafting together a very specific message and vision. Can you talk about that process?
Well, first of all, it was a very complicated process because I realized that I was aiming to make a film that is impossible, because that's, you don't make film like this, and as you say, you do research and then you go shooting this film and then you sit in the editing room and try to make something out of your material. In that case, I knew that somehow the Baldwin's word should be the main event. It's so I had to find how do I build something around those words and make them impactful, the way it affect us when we read it, without changing their context, without changing their poetry, without changing their sincerity, etc. All the great things that we know about Baldwin. And so one of the things that, of course, made it possible was the access to everything. Usually you get an option for a book or a chapter, right, or a few letters, but it's very rare. And I think I never heard of that. Instead, if it's the family itself that makes a project like this. But I don't know any other example of that kind of access. And so it was a responsibility, of course. And also how to find the right approach. And finally, I decided it was about, it took a long time. In fact, Gloria Baldwin gave me probably 4 years after I got the rights. It took me that long to find an entrance to this film. And she gave me a little pile of papers and a few letters, and she told me in her mysterious way sometimes that she has, and said, "Here, Raoul, you will know what to do with this." And then I went through these papers, read them, and there was this letter that I used in the film. And then came slowly that idea of this unfinished book. But for me, I couldn't understand what can be unfinished when I see the body of work of this man. Right. And so I thought, well, he wrote it. He just didn't know that he did. So my job was to go throughout his work and find those words and put the book together. So that was the beginning of this adventure.
And so also part of taking his words and giving them new life was bringing on Sam Jackson to voice those words. Talk about your creative collaboration with him.
Well, I knew that I needed a voice. I knew that, of course, we had the footage of Baldwin, we had his interviews, and it was hard enough to choose the good one and to know where to cut, because you tend to want to take everything, because everything is good, everything is great. And then for the text, we knew somebody had to not read the text, I knew it shouldn't be a voiceover or a narrator, because the idea of the film is to be Baldwin, to be in his heads, so that the spoken words are his. So I knew I needed really a great actor to do that, somebody who had also some street credibility. And then the idea of Samuel Jackson came very late. He was the first on my list, and we asked him, and they asked to see the film, the cut I was working on, and they say yes. And so the work with him, the actual work was, it's about these words, and it's about the modesty that we should have in front of those words, and how will you create that character, who is James Baldwin? So it was like play the role.
Yeah, there
Don't
are
read. Don't.
shades.
Everything has
Yeah.
to come up from your belly.
Right.
And if you feel that it's and you know when you're recording, you know when it's right or it's like music. You know when the note is precise and there, and you know when it's not there. So, and that's how we work. I basically, you know, he not learned the text, he worked with the text, as you would do for a theater play, you know, and create a character. Actors who've done theater knows that. In the movies, rare. But Samuel Jackson is a great theater actor. And so, and that's what he did. He played it from the inside, and in a way that he didn't have to project, but as he's telling the story to his closest friend, sitting on a chair near him, and being just sincere and believe in what he's saying.
So, particularly in the last portion of the film, there were so many moments that struck like lightning for how on the nose they are for what we're dealing with in today's times. I'm wondering what you're hoping that audiences will walk out of the theater with as they grapple with this film and step out into what we're facing in today's days, particularly after Tuesday's results.
Well, I think it's for them to say somehow, but my hope, and I'm sure because I saw it working already, is that to send people back to Baldwin, you know, and everything is there. You don't have to invent. It's there, and Baldwin is, you know, Baldwin books. It's something you can read and reread. I always have a Baldwin book not far from me. Throughout my life, I've given probably more than 1,000 books to friends, to young people, to in everywhere in the world, and I hope that this book will do the same as they did for me, because they help create who I am today.
All right. I am going to open it up to the audience for questions. If you can just raise your hand and shout out, it's hard to see. Yes, over here.
First, I want to thank you for this gut-wrenching, beautiful portrayal of this genius, Prussian. Towards the end, there's a line that Baldwin says about change, and that we must face ourselves before we can change. So I'm going to reverse that. That many of the people that have voted for Trump have said that we need change.
And the question? Well, even before we say, you know, look at those people, we should look at ourselves. It's about each one of us. And I think the film and the Baldwin words somehow should force us to see each one of us individually and collectively, but individually first. You know, where are we today? How do we see the world around us? How do we see the reality throughout this haze of confusion that we are bombarded with every day through television, Twitter, Facebook, etc., where we can't even express a thought and till the end, and we are forced every day to give short answers without even thinking, and that's what it is telling us, you know, and see through those images. And by the way, images that started not only recently, but a very long time ago, with the first images of Hollywood, who went throughout the world. Because it's not just a story of the United States, it's a story of the world. Those two parallel stories, as you say, that never crosses. And I think it's our job to do those first steps, not the others. The problem is always us as well.